Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, very dramatic developments over the last 24 hours. Here is now the absolute latest. President Trump, talking to the press corps, has now revealed, he, along with senior members of his administration, that there have been back-channel negotiations with what most people believe is the leader of Iran's parliament. It appears now that he is now being elevated as a spokesman for the regime, as someone Trump believes he can do business with. He may even be the future president or leader of Iran. We shall see. But he is the head of the Iranian parliament, and using Pakistan, Turkey, and Egypt as the key mediators. President Trump now has said he has sent the Iranian regime a 15-point plan, a deal, as he put it, that if accepted by Iran would end the war. Now, I'm going to get to the 15-point plan in a second, but as this is taking place, President Trump, not putting all of his eggs in one basket, is now preparing a plan B in case these talks collapse. In many ways, it's classic Trump. He's now willing to extend the hand in order to get a diplomatic deal. But with the other hand, he's now visibly winding up for a devastating punch that will knock Iran's teeth out. So, as he's now talking potential deal, a diplomatic pathway to ending the war. In fact, this may be done by this weekend, according to President Trump. He is now doubling down on sending even more troops and more forces, U.S. forces, into Iran or into the Persian Gulf, to be more accurate. So the Marine Expeditionary Unit, and we talked about this recently, about 2,200 U.S. forces are scheduled to arrive this Friday, i.e. 2 days from today. That is literally the day the deadline ends that Trump gave the mullahs to negotiate an end to the war, or else Trump vowed to quote-unquote obliterate and destroy Iran's energy and electric power grid and their energy power plants. So basically, he says, no deal by Friday. We are taking out the lights in Iran. You will have no power, no electricity to run your country, your economy, or your society. He doesn't want to do it. He has said repeatedly, I really don't want to do it because I know many Iranian civilians, people on the ground, ordinary Iranians, many of whom hate the regime, they will suffer. But if I have to, I will. On top of that, there are now more U.S. ships streaming toward the Persian Gulf. We are now growing our military presence. There is a massive buildup continuing. There are already 50,000 U.S. troops positioned in the region. And now this broke yesterday. President Trump now has ordered the deployment of the 82nd U.S. Airborne, an elite rapid response unit of about 3,000 troops that are going to be now, they're already told they have to leave. They will be arriving in the next 2 to 3 days. And the speculation is, where will the 82nd Airborne be used? Where will it be deployed? The talk among many people, and it's just guesswork now at this point, is that Trump may be making a play for Carg Island or to insert the 82nd Airborne along coastal areas in the Strait of Hormuz to help Trump clear the Strait of Hormuz and take away the mullah's last trump card. They have one big card to play, which is that they have blocked the Strait of Hormuz, and it's going to take a lot of effort on our part to clear it, to unblock it. It's also very high risk, It will leave our forces vulnerable to Iranian drone attacks, missile attacks. So he's now getting ready to take Karg Island, which is the main oil export terminal hub where most of Iran's oil is sold to the world. And he may also be making a move to shatter Iran's coastal defenses to try to reopen the strait. But what is very clear is that President Trump would rather end the war sooner rather than later. And he has given the mullahs now an exit ramp. We will not take Karg Island. We will not deploy U.S. group boots on the ground. This war can end, and it can end by the end of this weekend. In fact, administration officials are now telling the media that Trump would like to meet with this Iranian parliamentary leader face to face in a high stakes peace talks in Pakistan. Pakistan has now put itself forward as an honest broker. The Prime Minister of Pakistan yesterday went on social media and said we would be honored to host a talk, a final peace talk, peace negotiations between President Trump and his team, J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner, along with an Iranian delegation, most likely led by this Iranian parliamentary speaker. So, the ball is now in Iran's court. The question now is, what are Trump's final terms? It is a 15-point plan. I want you to listen now first to President Trump saying he has gotten feedback from the Iranians. They want a deal. They're desperate for a deal. Militarily, they are being dismantled and degraded and defeated. And they want to end this before their entire regime is defeated. Listen now to President Trump. Roll cut to A. And by the way, the reporter asks, why would you trust the Iranians? And Trump says, well, they have no choice. They're on the ropes. They're desperate. And they know I may continue to bomb them for weeks and weeks and weeks and damage them and destroy them even more. They are facing potential annihilation. And I'm offering them now a chance to get out of this, an exit ramp, as they say. And they're the ones who are desperate for a deal. Roll cut to A, Mike.
What makes you trust them?
I don't trust anybody. I don't trust you. I mean, that's only because I know you. But if I didn't know you, I'd probably have more trust. But I don't trust anyone. Why do you say that? Why do you say what makes you trust? Do you think I trust them? I don't trust them.
Then why bother talking to them?
Because they're going to make a deal. They're going to make a deal.
So, and he stressed it again and again. They want a deal. Now, he says he wants to end this war. He wants to end the loss of lives. He doesn't want to have to destroy all their electric power plants, destroy their energy infrastructure and their electric grid. And he says they have now made a massive concession. He said this is the key concession that he wanted. The mullahs have now offered it on a silver platter. Roll cut for Mike.
Look, if we can end this without more lives being down, without knocking out $10 billion electric plants that are brand new and the apple of their eye, I'd like to be able to do that, you know. But they can't have certain things. I mean, you know the things. I don't have to go over the list, but again, it starts with no nuclear weapons, and they've agreed to that. There won't be any nuclear weapons. They're not going to have, and they're not going to have enrichment, any of those things.
So for Trump, he said the big diplomatic breakthrough was that the mullahs have now said no nuclear weapons. They are willing to agree to that, have open inspection, on nonstop inspection, that they will give up their nuclear ambitions once and for all. So I'm going to go through all 15 points very quickly after the break. And you need to hear this, because as they say, the devil is in the details. But in essence, here is now what Trump is telling the mullahs. No nukes, no nuclear weapons ever. No enrichment, none ever. You can have a civilian nuclear program, but that has to be monitored by the United States. We will no longer just trust the Iranians or the regime. On top of that, Iran must limit its ballistic missile program for self-defense purposes only. They cannot develop missiles that could threaten other countries or Europe or, God forbid, the United States. They must end all funding for terrorist proxies going forward. So no more instigating wars or terrorist groups against Israel or against other allies of ours in the Middle East or in Europe or here in the United States. And we will have joint control with the Iranians. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, President Trump makes a move, a very aggressive move to end the war with Iran. He is now making a very strong push, a diplomatic push, as some people are calling it, an off-ramp to end the war. And he has now given Iran a 15-point plan, which if they accept, or there's going to be some back and forth, but for the most part, if they accept this 15-point plan, Trump says the war is over and he will send all of the troops home and this thing is done. It's done. So here is now the 15 points. In essence, here is what he has now sent to the Iranian regime. Number one, Iran must dismantle existing nuclear capabilities. 2, Iran must commit, i.e. promise, vow, never to pursue nuclear weapons again. 3, there can be no uranium enrichment on no uranium enrichment on Iranian territory. 4, you know that all that enriched uranium that they still have that's buried underneath all that rubble? Iran must hand its stockpile of enriched uranium to the International Atomic Energy Agency. So they don't keep any of the enriched uranium. 5, there are 3 big nuclear facilities or sites: Natanz, Isfahan, and Fordow, the 3 that we bombed. We bombed them in Operation Midnight Hammer, and now again in Operation Epic Fury. They must be completely dismantled. 6, the International Atomic Energy Agency must be granted full, unfettered access to all of Iran's nuclear facilities. 7, Iran must cease the funding, directing, and arming of its proxies. 8, Iran must abandon its regional proxy paradigm. Okay, in plain English, stop funding terrorist groups, proxies all over the region, all over the world. You can no longer be a state sponsor of terrorism. 9, the Strait of Hormuz must remain open. 10, Iran's missile program must be limited in both range and quantity. 11, Iran must limit its use of missiles to self-defense. 12, now this is what Iran gets in return: the end of all sanctions imposed not just by the United States, but by the international community. So there would be no more sanctions, none whatsoever, on Iran or the mullahs, and they would be fully reintegrated into the international community of nations, and they would be able to trade with the entire world. There would be free flow of investment, business. So Iran would be restored as a normal country again on the world stage. 13, the United States pledges to assist and advance Iran's civilian nuclear program. So basically, we would do the enrichment and hand it over to the Iranians for their civilian nuclear program. 14, for I don't know how many decades now, there's been what's called a snapback mechanism, meaning if ever Iran doesn't comply, they've been under a lot of pressure to rein in their nuclear program, and if they don't comply, it triggers automatic sanctions. This snapback mechanism, allowing for these automatic sanctions to be reimposed, would now be removed. And the big one, the mullahs would be allowed to stay in power. So the theocracy would remain intact. Obviously, different leadership. Obviously, the Ayatollah, the old one, is dead. Many of the old leaders of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps have been killed. But still, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps would be still running Iran. The son of the Ayatollah would still be the supreme leader. And the regime, wounded, weakened, battered, degraded as it is, would continue to remain in place, and they would stay in power. So, in a nutshell, no nukes, no enrichment, no funding of terrorist proxies, and in exchange for that, the mullahs get to stay in power, and Trump wants to make some kind of a deal with them that both the United States and Iran together would patrol and control the flow of oil and gas and the Strait of Hormuz. So Iran would end the blockade of the Strait, and together we would be responsible with them for guaranteeing free navigation on the Strait of Hormuz. My question to you, and the administration is listening. Okay, this is one of the most important shows I've ever done. And obviously, the administration is concerned about what the reaction is going to be among MAGA supporters, Trump supporters. And President Trump now believes that he has won the war. In fact, let me just play the cut. He's essentially now said mission accomplished, that the war is over. The war has been won. Listen now to Trump. This was yesterday in the Oval Office at an impromptu press conference. Roll cut 10, Mike.
I think we're going to end it. I can't tell you for sure. I don't like to say this. We've won this. This war has been won. The only one that likes to keep it going is the fake news. I mean, the New York Times, you read the New York Times, it's like we're not winning a war where they have no Navy and they have no Air Force and they have no nothing. And we literally have planes flying over Tehran and other parts of their country. They can't do a thing about it.
So the war is won. Now, my question to you, the 15-point plan that Trump has now put on the table for the Iranians, is this a plan from a war that's been won? I'll be honest with you. I'm going to give you my take, and then I want to hear from you. This is a bad deal. I don't like this deal, and I'll tell you why I don't like this deal. Number one, to me, the mullahs remain in power. I understand leadership has been decapitated. I get it. They've been degraded. Their military has been dismantled. No question. But still, they are now left in power. So you haven't killed the snake. You've allowed the snake to live on. And by living on, does anybody truly believe that the Iranians will just ultimately give up their nuclear ambitions? I mean, yes, they'll wait a while, they'll bide their time, but the mullahs will have the ability to rearm, to rebuild, slowly but surely, and eventually they'll probably want to break out and have a nuclear weapon. So all we're doing now is kicking the can down the road. Now, Trump said clearly when we started the bombing campaign that one of the key goals of this war was regime change. He said, I could play you the cuts over and over again. He said unconditional surrender. This is not unconditional surrender. This is not regime change. The regime stays in power. The regime remains intact. So to me, you're falling short of the goals of the war. Now, furthermore, and I think this is going to have huge implications, how are the Iranian people going to react to this? Here you have many of them who have tried to rise up. They've been killed. Others are hunkering down because we're bombing much of the country, but privately, or they're on the balcony and they're cheering us on, or privately they're communicating with friends and family members, hoping that we win, saying that they're ready to maybe come out onto the streets and protest when the bombing begins to die down a little bit. Well, now they're going to be at the mercy of the mullahs. You think it was bad a couple months ago when they slaughtered, 30, 35, 36,000 protesters. You wait till after the end of this if the mullahs manage to survive and hang on. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, the Basij militia, they're going to go door to door, house to house, neighborhood to neighborhood, and they are going to hunt down any dissidents, anyone that they heard, saw, or believe supported the U.S.-Israel bombing campaign. So, to me, it's not fair to tell the people of Iran, rise up, take back your government, and then after 3 weeks of bombing, say, well, okay, the nuclear program is smashed, their enrichment is gone, and we think we can, defang them in terms of supporting terrorists, which is a good thing. All of it is a good thing. But the poor Iranian people are left twisting in the wind. Whether we like it or not, the people of Iran will see it as a betrayal. Now, furthermore, it's going to actually leave the mullahs in one way, only in one way, but still in a significant way, in a much stronger position. Because if they get now a say in the Strait of Hormuz, I understand we're going to countervail them. I understand we're going to balance them off. But now, if it's going to be a joint operation, a U.S.-Iranian joint patrol of the Strait of Hormuz, well, remember, Strait of Hormuz was an international waterway. It flowed by Iran. It also flowed by several other countries as well. But now the Iranians get to exercise some leverage and influence over the most vital shipping lane in the world. And now we're on the hook to now police the Strait of Hormuz for God knows how many more years. And then let's not be short-sighted. What happens when a Democrat comes back to power? Because the Democrats will. Are they going to do another Jimmy Carter and say, you know what? We're not going to police the Strait of Hormuz. We're out of here. That leaves the Iranians in complete control of the Strait of Hormuz. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, this is a bad deal. To me, it falls way short of Trump's own objectives that he set in this war. Now, that's me. I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868. Do you like this deal? Do you not like this deal? Now, in particular, those of you that have supported the war from the beginning, what do you say now? Is this enough for you? Now, to be fair, they will no longer be a state sponsor of terrorism. They will no longer be able to enrich uranium. They will have no nuclear weapons whatsoever. They will give up their nuclear ambitions. And in theory, they will no longer pose a threat to anybody because they won't even have, in terms of ballistic missiles, they'll have only enough to protect themselves, but nothing more long range to affect either Israel or other countries in the region, never mind hitting or targeting Europe. So in a sense, the regime has been defanged. So in that sense, you can claim it's a victory. But on the other hand, many of you said, and it was a very strong argument, Jeff, they've posed a threat to us for 47 years. This is about toppling the Ayatollahs. If we don't topple the Ayatollahs, this war ultimately was for nothing. Do you agree with that? Or do you believe this is enough? Now, for the anti-war people, you didn't want the war from the beginning. You said it was a mistake. This ends the war. If the Iranians accept, we shall see. They have a deadline, couple days, we shall see. If they accept by Friday, there's going to be a peace summit in Pakistan, most likely by the weekend or early next week. This effectively would end the war. But it leaves the mullahs intact, and they have sway over the over the Strait of Hormuz. They will jointly patrol it and control it along with us. So, in some sense, it leaves the mullahs even slightly stronger or in a better position than before. So, if you're anti-war, do you like this deal? If you're pro-war, do you like this deal? Or do you not like this deal? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I want to take Andy. I'm going to wait. We only have about 1 minute left. So let me just quickly re-summarize, and then I want to go to the phone lines. 617-266-6868 is the number. In essence, Trump now is offering the Iranians a way out of the war to end it. The mullahs, the theocracy, will stay in power, but in exchange for staying in power, they can no longer have nuclear weapons or enrich any kind of a nuclear program or fund terrorist groups in the Middle East. A, is this a good deal? And B, will this help or hurt Trump? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, Trump now wants to end the war through a diplomatic pathway. He has now offered Iran a 15-point plan. He says if Iran accepts it pretty much as a framework, and they iron out the details, the war will end. So, Mike, I've laid it out exactly what the terms are. My question to you, should the president follow through with this? Do you support this deal? Or do you think the president is giving up too much? I'm just curious. Now, I just got to say this. The sense I get is that the audience is a little bit shell-shocked. Why? Because the lines, which are very uncharacteristic for Kuhner country, the lines are tepid. We have a few calls. I'm going to go to the calls, but usually we have full lines. The text line is exploding. On Messenger, I'm getting, every show, reaction. Today, it's half dead, half empty. It's as if many of you are still processing this, absorbing this, trying to feel it out and try to make of it, trying to find out what to make of it. So I think many of you are still frankly unsure or uncertain, but let me tell you what some of the reaction is. This is from 781. You can text the Kuhner Man, 70470. Jeff, I support this deal all the way. It ends the war. It neuters Iran in terms of its nuclear program and its threat to its neighbors. And Trump can get back to winning the midterms. Oil and gas prices will fall. The president can claim a win. And we can deal with the mullahs down the road if need be. So there are some of you that say it's a good deal. There are others who are texting saying, I'm happy with it. That's good enough for me. We've achieved our military goals, maybe not our political goals, which is the toppling of the Ayatollahs, but militarily, we achieved our goals. Many of you are saying, though, I think the Iranians are too stupid to take it. Many are you saying, Jeff, rationally, they should take it. But my gut says they're not going to take it, which means the war is going to continue, and Trump is probably going to make a big move on Karg Island or some of these other strategic islands in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, this is from Brian on Messenger. Jeff. The analogy I can use is a football team that is clearly superior. They are marching down the field for the touchdown that will guarantee total victory. And then they decide to kick a field goal because they are afraid of making a mistake. Interesting. Okay, one more. This is from 617. 617. Jeff, I'm sorry, but there's no way to sugarcoat this. This deal means the mullahs have won. I don't know. Do you agree with that? Do you think this deal means, not militarily, obviously they've lost, but geopolitically, they survive, they live to fight another day, their regime remains intact, and in some sense, they even have more influence and sway over the Strait of Hormuz than when the war began. So you can look at it from multiple different angles. I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868. Andy in Milford. Thanks for holding, Andy, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Andy.
Jeff, there is many aspects of this deal that is going to take me time to process. But a couple of points, Jeff. The point of the deal that says no regime change, I will say this, Jeff. If this is going to be the start of getting the United States out of the business of regime change in the Middle East, I think that is a good thing. And I know many of our callers probably disagree with that, but changing that Iranian regime has got to come from the Iranian people on the ground, Jeff. It's got to come from them. And just from a geopolitical perspective, the only way that I see, Jeff, that can happen is if the Iranian people decisively rise once again with the green movement. And were that to happen, Jeff, we would be insane not to arm them at that point. That is point number one. Point number two, ending all the economic sanctions. Mr. President, please be very careful about that one, because, unless he is very sure that he can keep those mullahs in some kind of box, I am gravely concerned that would economically enable them all over again. That's the 2 points on that, Jeff.
Well, as usual, look, Andy, that's why I was happy we led with you, because you always make such intelligent, insightful points every time you call without fail. Look, I can just say this. I'm thinking as you're thinking. Look, one of the things we have to look, we've got, this is not our first rodeo now in the Middle East, even with Iran. One of the things we have to look at is, sure, okay, I trust Trump. Of course I trust Trump to keep Iran in a box and to keep Iran contained. But what happens in 2028? 3 years is very quick. And say a Democrat comes back to power. Your point is dead on. You lift complete lifting of the sanctions, which is what this deal would do, because that's the carrot to entice Iran to give up its complete nuclear program. Well, they're going to be flush with cash. They're going to be selling oil, and they got a lot of oil to sell on the international market. Now, they're going to have to do a lot of rebuilding because we've destroyed a lot of their infrastructure. But still, the mullahs are going to be flush with cash. Forget the $1.7 billion that Obama gave them, which was an atrocity. Don't get me wrong. But, I mean, we're talking, this is going to be, hundreds of billions of dollars in oil revenue over multiple years pouring into their coffers. You get a Democrat in power and they can rebuild, rearm, replenish in no time. So, you've got to consider that. You also have to consider, now you didn't mention this, but think about if you're one of our Persian Gulf allies. I mean, just think about it from their point of view. They're like, hey, look, we were loyal to you. We stood by you. We're trading with you. We're investing trillions of dollars in your country, in the United States. We have security agreements with you. These mullahs attack us in the war. You and Israel attack them. They attack us. They've destroyed parts of our oil infrastructure. It's going to take us a long time to rebuild this. And they not only stay in power, but you're going to lift all sanctions so they could potentially threaten us down the road and maybe even get joint control over the Strait of Hormuz. So think about if I'm Saudi Arabia or Kuwait or Qatar or Bahrain or United Arab Emirates. And I'm saying, so we're going to have to send all our oil through the Strait of Hormuz, which used to be international waterway. Now, I'm not saying there's going to be a toll. The Iranians want a toll. Trump's not going to let them have a toll. But still, they're like, and we're going to have to deal with the Iranians now? So they get to exercise a veto, potentially, over our ability to sell oil and ship it on the international market? The Gulf states are going to say, dude, we got screwed. Now, and the other thing, I'm just, again, thinking out loud, but think about, I agree with you. It's going to have to come from within. And I hope there's a long-term plan to arm the insurgents, to fund the insurgents, to train the insurgents so that the Iranian people can finally take control of their own destiny. But look at it in the short term. If you're someone who opposed the regime and you put your neck out on the line because you're anticipating, because remember, Trump said, we're coming. Hang on, we're coming. Help is on the way. Well, now you've left them in power. You've left a snake in power. You're going to feel betrayed. And look, we have to look at the world as it is, not as we wish it would be. We toppled the Taliban in Afghanistan. Who helped us? The Northern Alliance. Remember them? They were a key ally within Afghanistan. What did we do? We threw them under the bus. We used the Kurds to help overthrow Saddam Hussein. What did we end up doing? We threw the Kurds under the bus. So what I'm saying is, what's going to start to happen, whether we like it or not, is that people around the world are going to say, you cannot trust the Americans. That when the going gets tough, they will abandon you, or they will betray you, or they will cut and run. And I think the other angle that Trump has to consider in all this. Now, again, I was a war skeptic. I didn't want this war. Please, don't get me wrong. Okay, that's why I said, don't go in, because it's going to be a freaking mess. Okay, but he's got to consider this now, because we've gone in, and now there are consequences from this. The Iranian mullahs are going to go to their people and to the Middle East and to the Muslim world, and they can say legitimately, we took the best that the United States and Israel could hit us with. We took a beating, a pounding like no one's ever taken before, and we're still standing. We stood up to the great Satan and the little Satan. Now, to me, I think their prestige is going to grow from this. Not from me. I can't stand them. I hate them. But what I'm saying is, in the eyes of the Muslim world, certainly in the eyes of the Shia Muslim world, they're going to say, hey, look, man, they took on both the United States and Israel. And yeah, they got a bloody nose. They got their face kicked in, but they weren't overthrown. And the Israelis and the Americans said their goal was to overthrow them. And the mullahs stood there and took punch after punch after punch, and they survived. Believe it or not, for the Iranian mullahs, they will claim that as a victory. And I think potentially this could even strengthen their position at home. That's my fear. What say you, Andy?
That regime staying in power has consequences and implications, and the thing is, I could take the staunch pro-war perspective and just keep blasting away and just blast them out of there.
Andy? What happened to Andy? Andy was okay, you died on us, Andy. Andy, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear
Andy,
me?
okay, please, just finish your thoughts. So we lost you I could take the pro-war perspective, and we just keep blasting away and hammering away. And if you want, send in the Marines, send in the 82nd Airborne, take Karg Island, really hold the Iranian economy hostage, take away their last trump card, which is the blocking of the Strait of Hormuz. So keep this going for another couple of weeks. Unblock the Strait of Hormuz. Now you've really got the mullahs by the tonsils, and then basically drive them from power. Is that your point, Andy?
My point was, okay, I could take that position. The only problem with that, Jeff, is I can't think of even one Middle East country where a U.S.-imposed regime change has worked.
That's a very good point. That's a very, very good point. Andy, as always, dynamite call. 6-1. It's a great way to kick off the phones. 617 the discussion and the debate. 617-266-6868. Chris in Boston. Thanks for holding, Chris, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, good morning. And I'm going to just kind of branch off of what Andy said. He said that he couldn't think of a time where regime change worked in the Middle East. Listen, I'm about to be 50 years old. I've known about Iran since my entire life and the problem, the thorn in the side they've been to the world. But a regime change that worked in the Middle East, I don't know. How about when Qatar helped the Shah fall? That was the regime change. That was a successful one right there. And to Trump's point, to back out after promising the Iranian people and the world that we were going to get this thorn out of our side, to let the mullahs stay in power, no sanctions, we are going to regret this for many years to come. We were worried about forever war. We're going to be there forever. This is an absolute failure and a betrayal to the Iranian people and the world. I'm sorry. I've lost all respect I had for Trump at this point. I'm done.
Chris, let me ask you this to play, just to be fair and play devil's advocate. What do you say to the argument that Trump says, and this is the argument I think he's going to make? Look, in some sense, it is regime change. He's already making that argument. I can play you the cuts if you want. The old Ayatollah is dead. Ali Khamenei. The old guard was pretty much taken out. These former, the leaders of the IRGC and some of the leaders of that regime under the old Ayatollah. So we've got new players now, new people. He says that they're more pragmatic, that they're more willing to work with us. That's number one. Number two, he goes, look, I've defanged the mullahs. Everybody was worried about their nukes and their nuclear weapons. I've taken that off the table. So there is no existential threat to Israel. There is no existential threat to the region or to the world. I've taken that threat off the table. And then finally, he goes, look, Chris, I hear you. He probably said, look, I want to take the mullahs out. But I got gas now at $4 a gallon in Massachusetts, $5-6 in California. Gas prices are up. Inflation's coming back. Energy costs are going up. The longer this war goes on, the more oil is going to go up even more and stay up longer. And the Democrats are going to run against me on this issue. And Chris, I'm going to get slaughtered in the midterms. And once I get slaughtered in the midterms, I'm no good to anybody. What do you say? In other words, political pressure, domestic pressure, is driving him to seek an off-ramp now. What do you say to that argument?
That speaks to a lack of a plan going in. I mean, you consider the midterms. I think he's already lost the midterms, to be honest with you, for everybody. It's a lack of a plan going in that didn't secure first the Strait of Hormuz with overwhelming. We have the greatest Navy on the planet. We should have secured that before we did anything to make sure the oil flowed. We didn't have $4 gas prices. Fine, okay, good from there. But you talk about what's going to happen next. Okay, yeah, we defanged them. Well, it doesn't take a lot of time to refang them. You got to consider China and Russia have some major interest in that oil and major interest in that region. They'll be flush with cash in the same way that when Obama gave them their money back. There's no good to this. Yes, if we have in fact taken the nukes off the table, wonderful. But we haven't taken Iran off the table as a threat, and we haven't. We failed. It keeps going back to me. We failed the Iranian people. We fail them every time we promise we'll do something. We don't do it, and this is a case where we didn't do it.
Interesting.
I hate calling in being this upset. I hate feeling like I supported something that ultimately makes me look foolish. And at the end of the day, I do think we've lost the midterms at this point.
Interesting. Very interesting. Chris, thank you very much for that call. Interesting. Okay, Russ in Boston. Thanks for holding, Russ, and welcome.
First of all, Jeff, this is workable as long as the United States continues to be have a strong commander-in-chief. Put the Democrats back in power, and we will have a repeat of the 1930s. There's no doubt about that. Now, as far as I'm concerned, the Iranian people in the United States and Europe have failed to ask the American government to be trained to invade and take their country back during this operation, okay? So, if the Iranian people end up, not in a good position after this, I hate to say this, but they didn't do anything to prevent it.
Russ, let me ask you this. Say you're not Russ in Boston. You're Secretary of Defense or Secretary of War, Russ. And you're sitting next to the president. And he says, Russ, I'm going to send this 15-point plan. I'm going to end the war. They accept it. This thing is over. They're going to stay in power. We're going to lift sanctions completely on them. And they're going to do business. But no nuclear weapons, no enrichment, no state sponsor of terrorism. In other words, they're going to have to be a completely neutered country. And if they agree to that, I'm going to let them trade on the world market. I'm going to lift all sanctions, and they get to stay. Essentially, the regime will stay intact. They will survive. What would you tell them? Send the plan or don't send the plan?
Jeff, I honestly, at this point, I don't think we have any other clear choice here. Again, I blame this on the Iranian people that are in this country. They went out and protested on the streets and all this other stuff. But when it came to taking arms and take their country back, they failed.
Interesting.
That's why I say this is the best deal.
The best deal at this time. I hear you. Okay, Russ was a hawk. He was for the war. And he says, look, don't blame Trump. Okay, I'm going to go right back to the phone lines. But first, Wednesday, 7:20. You know what that means. Truth or troll. Take it away, Mike.
And now, America's favorite game show, where you get to decide on the Kuhner Report. This is Truth or Troll.
Today's entry for Truth or Troll comes from President Trump, who was speaking with reporters outside of Air Force One the other day when he was asked who will control the Strait of Hormuz once the Iran conflict is over.
What about the Strait of Hormuz? Who's going to be in control of that?
That'll be opened very soon if this works.
How soon? And who's in control of it? Will Iran still be able to control the flow of oil?
Be jointly controlled.
By who?
Maybe me. Maybe me.
You want the United States to be in control?
Me and the Ayatollah, whoever the Ayatollah is, whoever the next Ayatollah. Look,
So there it is. Trump and the Ayatollahs now working together to run the Strait of Hormuz. So is he telling the truth there? Is that what actually is going to happen? Or is he just poking fun at Iran?
Well, it's very funny the way he says it, me and the Ayatollah. But, I mean, according to the 15-point plan and what the administration is telling everybody and the Iranians, they're actually, I mean, it's not going to be technically Trump and the Ayatollah, but it's going to be joint control. U.S.-Iranian joint control of the Strait of Hormuz. So it's funny, and, you may, on the one hand, it kind of looks like he's trolling, but I'm just going by what the administration is saying. They're like, yeah, you patrol one side, we patrol the other side, and so it's truth, Mike. If you can believe it, it's truth. It'll be the United States and Iran, not technically him and the Ayatollah, but they'll be working together to keep the Strait of Hormuz free and open, Mike. So if I was voting, I'd say truth. But I want to ask you, the great audience, is this A, troll, or B, truth? When Trump says he and the Ayatollah, i.e. the United States and Iran, will jointly control the Strait of Hormuz. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in national ER. You can also vote via X. My handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhner. Now, I got to say this, from the mullah's point of view, they had no say in the Strait of Hormuz before the war. Now, according to all these press reports, they are now demanding that all ships hand over lists of their crew, of their cargo, of their license, that do they have the right to even go, have a ship. And they're now inspecting everything. They're already acting like they're basically, in control or semi in control of the Strait of Hormuz. So, ironically, one of the consequences of the war is it's given the mullahs, Tehran, more power, more control, more influence over the Strait of Hormuz, which is the most vital oil, natural gas shipping lane in the world. Now, Trump says we're going to counterbalance that. We're going to be there as well, and the two of us will be controlling it jointly. But that's another reason why, frankly, I'm not happy with this deal. But anyway, that's me. Jim in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Jim, and welcome.
Hello, Jeff.
Hi, Jim.
Hi. So I just want to focus on two things here. Where are we now, and where does this go? So with the deal, I would love any deal that kind of shuts us down now and move on to bigger and better things for our country. But realistically, we're dealing with two things. We're dealing with what we want for deal and what Iran wants for deal. Now, I've heard what we want, and you've listed it, in detail. Problem is what Iran wants for deal. So they want reparations. They want all the bases, our U.S. bases, out of the Gulf. They want to control Hormuz with a tax. And they're not going to give much. They're going to give some nuclear concessions, whatever. So there's a real big divide there in what they want, we want. And the reason that is, and if you look at what is involved in both sides, because they feel like they have the cards. Now, obviously, we've been bombing. We've taken out the Navy, a big chunk of the military, but they still have the things that matter most to them. They have their support, and more than that, they have these missiles and everything else still hidden. They have thousands of drones. They still can affect Hormuz. They still are affecting Hormuz. They can open it up to close it to us. They can open it up and close it to China, and they're letting other people through. It's not completely closed. They are letting, people that they want through, and they're making money off of that. So they're not broke. So that's where we're now. So I think, unfortunately, we're dealing with that, and I don't think, the deal even that we're proposing they would accept. And where do we go from here? Now, I think what this is going to lead to is ground troops. There's a reason we see all these troops in the region. There's a reason we saw all the ships leave our part of the country, Venezuela, and go to the Middle East. We saw it, we felt it, and I feel like that's where we're going. That's a real unfortunate thing because, again, what that leads to is not good things. I don't see ground troops really making a giant effect, except American lives being lost. And then comes the real leverage we have and Israel has which is nuclear, and that's what, unfortunately, I feel like this could really go. So what do we do? So the question is, what do we do? Well, we look at what they're at.
Jim, do me a favor. I'm up against the break. Please hang on. I'm going to come right back to you. Jim is worried that this thing could escalate and spiral even more out of control. Okay, we're going to go back to Jim in New Hampshire, but first, listen up, my friends. If you want the best way to hear the Kuhner Report every day, it is simple. The iHeartRadio app, it's free, it's easy, and it lets you take the show with you wherever you go. And here is the big announcement. We're launching something brand new, Kuhner's Talkback Tit for Tat. On the iHeart app, you look in the upper right corner for the red microphone, tap it, and boom, baby, you can leave a message for me, for Sandy, even for Mike. Tell us what's on your mind. Respond to something you heard on the show. Agree with us. Disagree with us. Give us your tit for tat. No filters. No gatekeepers. Leave your messages anytime during the week. And every Monday in the final segment of the show, we'll play back the best talkbacks on the air. Your voice becomes part of the Kuhner Report. So download the iHeart app. Hit that red microphone and join Kuhner's Talkback Tit for Tat, where the listeners fire back. All right, let's go right back to Jim in New Hampshire. Jim, you were saying the Iranians are holding a lot of the cards. They are now blocking the Strait of Hormuz for some ships. They're letting other ships go through. The regime has survived. They're still in a strong position. And oil prices are going up and up and up, putting pressure on the global economy, putting pressure on our economy, politically putting pressure on Trump. You believe now Trump is sending in a lot of ground troops into the area. He may actually go and try to take Karg Island and other strategic islands, which will just escalate the war, but you believe not fundamentally resolve the war. And you fear this may end up with a tactical nuclear strike by either the United States or Israel. Please pick up where you left off.
Yeah, Jeff, this is definitely a pivotal moment. I think if there's ever a chance for a deal, and it probably would be a bad deal for us, unfortunately, and I don't want that, but I think the alternative would be ground troops, which I don't think would pan out too well, and I do, I think we have enough nukes out there, and the possibility one getting shut off is not far from that possibility. I don't think we do it. I think Israel would be more likely. They feel more of an existential threat, I think, But so the thing is this. So we don't have a deal. We're miles apart between what they want and what we want. So we got to look at what they want and try to do something and try to work on something now. And again, they want reparations. If it was me, this is what I do. And Trump doesn't have to look bad on this. If you ask me, it wasn't, yeah, he's the commander-in-chief, of course, he'll take blame, but there's a lot of forces behind him. Number one being military-industrial complex. Number two being people like Lindsey Graham, the Warhawks. And number three being an Israel lobby, which I think has been wanting this for a long time. Now, I'm not saying, Lindsey Graham I would throw under the bus. I don't think he's good for this government. I think he's bad for MAGA. I think military-industrial complex needs to be taken down a notch. I think pretty much everyone's agreed on that for a long time. In Israel, yeah, we just need to maybe look at our relationship a little differently. Still support them. If we want, we can support them in this. We just need to send our ground troops there, or even behind anything that could remotely look like a nuclear strike. So I think that would be one step to maybe de-escalate this, and maybe it's a win for us, and maybe Iran would give them a concession, which would tone this down. Because again, we got three players in this. We have us, Iran, and Israel. I think Trump does want out. I think he thought this would have gone this way. I think Israel still wants this. I think it works in their behavior, in their favor. And I think Iran feels like they're holding a lot of cards. And, but we're still the United States of America. We still have a lot of power. But let's use it and maybe try to change the narrative. And what if we said, oh, you know what, that first day we blew up a school, we care about the Iranian people, and we rebuild that. Let's rebuild a couple schools, all right? If we did that, just admit one fault. I'm not saying, yeah, we took down the military. That's great. We did the Navy. That's great. But let's say we did that, and you know what the people of Iran would think? Like, oh, wow, look at this. The narrative might change. We care about that. Little things might go a long way, and that's not going to hurt us. Who doesn't want a school blown up? I don't care who those kids were. They're kids. So if it's just little things we could do that would that might work. But to go in hard or demanding things that aren't going to. I mean, this deal that we put, they're not going to accept it. I mean, what they want again, and we're not going to accept what they want. So, like I'm saying, let's try to work between those lines.
Well, Jim, Jim, I hear you. No, you've made your point, I think, very clear. If Iran doesn't take this deal, I think it guarantees more war. I think there's no question. And I think you're spot on when you say that's why the 82nd Airborne is being deployed as we speak. They're going to be there in 2 to 3 days. The Marines, it's 2 units now, the 31st Expeditionary Unit and the 11th Expeditionary Unit. They will be arriving Friday, which is the deadline that Trump gave them, unless, either you give me a deal or I'm going to start bombing power plants and the electric grid. So I don't think that's an accident. So who knows? Then I think Trump may make a move on Karg Island. He may even land on some of these coastal areas in the Strait of Hormuz. And he may then order the U.S. Navy. It's going to take a couple weeks. It's high risk, but he's going to say, forget it. We're going to clear the Strait of Hormuz once and for all. So we'll see. So this thing could end this weekend, or we're looking at another 2-3 weeks of the war. We shall see. But look, you're right. The mullahs may say no. Your price is too high, and we think we're in a stronger position, and we want more concessions. Trump will never agree to reparations. I know what you're saying. Build a couple schools, show some goodwill, but Trump's not going to give them reparations. The American people will not stand for it. And his base, and frankly, Republicans won't stand for it. So I think you're right. I think Trump wants to get out. I think he wants to get out. That's why he's declared victory. And we'll see if there are some Ayatollahs or some mullahs who say, you know what? I don't want to see my entire country bombed to the Stone Age. So that's the incentive for the Iranians, is that the bombing stops, the destruction stops, the constant, the degradation of their military and their regime stops. So we shall see. I agree with you. This is the pivotal week. There's no question. This is it. The next couple days will define the war and the direction of the region and in some ways the world. Jim, thank you very, very much for that call. Okay, very, very quickly, Dave, our Western PA constitutionalist correspondent in Pittsburgh, messaged me saying he agrees with Russ, not the previous caller before Jim, that ultimately he wants regime change. He wants to see us arm an internal opposition within Iran. However, he believes it's not Trump's fault. The Iranian people are ultimately to blame. They had their chance to rise up, and they didn't. And so now Trump is making the best of the situation because ultimately the Iranian people let him and let us down. You have others now that are texting the Kuhner man. This is from 617. Jeff, I voted for Trump 3 times. I trusted him on this war. I expected a quick victory. What is now obvious is that the war has not gone the way he and Pete Hegseth and Marco Rubio said it would. This has not been a quick victory. This is now turning into a quagmire. Trump is looking to get out, and I support him. So there you go. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Jeff in Quincy. Thanks for holding, Jeff, and welcome.
How are we doing today? I'm kind of confused. At the beginning of the week, you were saying you didn't want, 3 weeks ago, you were saying you didn't want the war, no regime change. Now you're on the side of regime change. You told us specifically that the mullahs had more support in the western districts and the more rural areas. Do you want to fight an insurgency war? I mean,
Jeff, can you hang on? I'm going to come right back to you. I'm up against a break. Okay, President Trump now said the war has now been won. He has declared victory. And now he has sent Iran a 15-point plan, which if they accept, or at least the framework, that he will then, the war is over. They will sit, have a peace summit. He will probably negotiate with Iran's leader of the parliament in Iran. And the regime will remain intact. This is essentially the deal. and economic sanctions will be lifted. Iran will have joint control with the United States of the Strait of Hormuz, but Iran will have to give up its nuclear ambitions completely. It will have no nukes, no weapons, no nuclear weapons, no enrichment. They will no longer be able to be a state sponsor of terrorism or fund proxies anywhere around the region. And so essentially Iran will be neutralized and defanged. My question to you, are you happy with this outcome? Is this the outcome you wanted? Is it a good deal or a bad deal? Let's go back to Jeff in Quincy, who seems to be mad at me. I don't know what I did to Jeff. But anyway, okay, Jeff, please pick up where you left off. You said I've been all over the map and that I want an insurgency or to fight an insurgency in Iran. So please, Jeff, pick up where you left off.
Yeah, Jeff, no, you misunderstood me. I said, what do you want? An insurgency. I didn't say you want it. I don't think anyone wants another insurgency war. The problem is these people blend off into the sunset with no uniforms on, and we don't know who they're killing. And then all of a sudden, people wind up dead, and they say, oh, these were mothers and fathers of whatever. But it's okay for Biden to bomb a family of 10 getting water, but that's beside the point. So the bottom line is you are totally not in favor of any of this, and now you want to continue this war, which, granted, don't get me wrong, the mullahs can't be trusted, but we don't even know who's in charge over there anymore. The president of the United States, who gets the best information in the world, has no idea who he's talking to. Do you think the son's still alive? My answer to that is hell no, he's never been seen. And he was in the same house that he got bombed in. The only way I see out of this is to cut a deal at this point and then hope, again, Trump's playing these people to get them off their butts in Iran, to get them to take their country back. And it's funny that the peace talks are being held in Pakistan, which is where you would have to smuggle weapons into these people to get them armed.
Well, Jeff, I mean, if I'm giving the impression that I want I want Trump to continue fighting the war for regime change, then I misspoke. I was against the war because I knew it was going to lead to a mess. I had a feeling. I said, no, I've been down this road before. It's not going to end the way we think it's going to end. And it looks like it. We shall see. The war's not over. The Iranians are stupid. They may reject this deal, and it could end up much worse for them. So we'll see. But no, my point is just this. Not that I'm for regime change. I mean, of course, I'd like to see the mullahs go, but I mean, I'm not for a war for regime change. What my point was just this, is that Trump was the one who laid down the benchmark. I mean, you would agree, Jeff. He came out and said, our goal is unconditional surrender. Our goal is regime change and the overthrow of the mullahs. Well, now by setting expectations so high, and that was one of the things I said, I don't think he should do that. Now, anything less than that seems like a defeat. And I think this is how even many of the people who supported the war are starting to look at this. Furthermore, by calling to lift the sanctions on Iran, they're going to be flush with cash. You see, my position was keep the boot on the neck of Iran, maximum economic pressure, maximum diplomatic pressure. I supported the bombing last year. I said, take out their nuclear program, wipe it out, which apparently we did. According to Ratcliffe and Tulsi Gabbard, they testified under oath, and they said that the nuclear program was obliterated, and they couldn't reconstitute their enrichment program for at least the next couple of years. So my point was, contain the mullahs, keep maximum pressure, and eventually give time for the internal opposition to rise against the Ayatollahs with our help. Now that we went to war, okay, we're at war. And my question is, are you happy with this deal? Now, you may disagree, Jeff. You may say this is the best that we can get. But I want to ask you, in all honesty, does this deal strike you as the kind of deal that you get after you've won a war? I'm just going by the president's words. He said, we've won. This is victory. It's over now. The Ayatollahs are still in power. I'm just stating the facts. The sanctions now, if they accept, will be lifted. And they're going to have joint control of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, maybe Trump has a long-term plan. I hope he does, to support the internal opposition, maybe arm them, clandestine, we'll see. But if you just go by what's on paper, the mullahs survive, the sanctions are lifted, which means they're going to be, swimming in oil money so they can rebuild and rearm. And they've got more influence over the Strait of Hormuz, which is so important, than they did before. I don't think this is a great deal. Jeff, am I wrong?
Well, you're assuming the mullahs are still in charge. We don't know who we're talking to over there. And if the mullahs were still in charge, they were talking tough until about 3 days ago, 3 days ago, when they told us that they weren't having a conversation with Donald Trump, which turns out they actually were having a conversation with Donald Trump as the media smashed Donald Trump for it, as a matter of fact. So I'm thinking that if the mullahs were still in charge, there's no way they would make this deal. And I think Donald Trump knows that, and he wants the people to rise up. And they had best get off their butts, because I'll tell you right now, the American people aren't going to stand for 13 more dead soldiers. And if this is the best deal he can get right now and get back to domestic affairs and get gas back down, the American people are going to be happy. And we're not sending the UN in to monitor this nuclear situation like we did before, because we know how useless they are. We're sending the Americans in. We're going to go in, and we can be trusted unless Democrats get back in power. And if they do, I'm sure Donald Trump will have the framework to not allow this to happen. And by then, the Democrats will just turn their tune and say they hate Iran anyway again, or try to fund them so that they get a bomb. So in the end, I think it's the best deal you're probably going to get in order to get people over in Iran to take their country back. And I think that's what it's all about. He's buying time. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised if weapons are already moving in through Pakistan to arm these people.
We'll see, Jeff. Hopefully he does have a long-term plan. We'll see. Jeff, let me ask you, because this is going to be the Kuhner Country poll question of the day. So as someone who supported the war, Jeff, I want to ask you, as in you supporting the war, now that we see maybe the end game, we'll see, and the 15-point plan, was the Iran conflict worth it? In your view, after everything is said and done, was the war worth it? Yes or no?
The answer would be yes. We just saw an intercontinental ballistic missile reach Europe. So, in essence, if they had a nuclear bomb and put it on the top of that, Europe would be in a mushroom cloud. So, I guess in the end, yes, it was worth it, 100%. And if we can get in there and make sure that these people don't abuse their people, and I'm sure that's going to happen. Donald Trump is not one to watch people be tortured. And that's why we're in there in the first place, because they killed 35,000 protesters. Everyone doubts Donald Trump. They don't give him the benefit of the doubt. Name me one thing he's been wrong about.
You're asking me, is it rhetorical, or are you asking me?
I'm asking you.
Oh, the Epstein files.
100% wrong about that. You're right. But again, that's, the Department of Justice.
But it's his Department of Justice. He appointed Pam Bondi. Okay. Jeff, what I'm saying is, look, he's a great president. There's no question. But he is human, Jeff. The man is, like everybody, people are flawed. They make mistakes. Great men make great decisions, but they also can have, make great mistakes. Lincoln was a great president. He made some great mistakes. Reagan, who I adore, he signed amnesty. I'm sorry, I love the guy, but I thought that was a big mistake of his presidency. So, Jeff, all I'm saying is, it's not that I don't trust Trump. I just think on this one, I would not have gone into war. You want my honest opinion? If I'm to answer the poll question, I'd say no, I don't think it's worth it. But look, that's what I love about this show, Jeff. We can agree to disagree. And look, in the end, you and I are on the same side because we both want Trump to win. And we know in the midterms, he has to win. So on that, we agree, my friend. Jeff, thank you so much for that call. Okay, so since I teased it, let me ask all of you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's quality roofing, siding, and windows. Now that we see the potential end game, again, the Iranians have not accepted. look, I'll be honest. If the mullahs had half a brain, I'd take this deal. All right? Your country's being bombed to rubble. You're losing and losing and losing and losing. I mean, take the deal. You stay in power, the sanctions are lifted, and you get joint control of the Strait of Hormuz, and you get to rebuild potentially, down the road. So, I know there's going to be strict restrictions and limits, and we're going to have strong monitoring of Iran. So it's going to take a while for them to break out of the box. Basically they have to wait for the Democrats to come back. But you're an idiot if you don't take this deal. Because I don't see it getting better for Iran if this war continues. I think the reason why Trump wants to end it now is because he's looking at gas, energy, oil prices, and, he's under political pressure because of the midterms. And because the way the Iranians fired those ballistic missiles, damaging the oil infrastructure of Saudi Arabia and Kuwait and Qatar, it's going to take a while to fix that and get production up. So his people are telling him, look, even if the war ends now, prices are still going to stay high for at least a couple months. So, that's Susie Wiles' argument. She's yelling and screaming, gas prices, gas prices, gas prices. So Trump is like, hey, look, a couple of months takes us into the summer or into the fall. That's too close for my liking. So that's why I get it. He wants to end it now, politically. And I think Jeff does have a clear point. He's looking at it and saying, if the Iranian people don't rise up, my options are limited. And, let me end this now, and ultimately we'll try to help them clandestine and see if they can rise up. If they don't rise up, the mullahs stay in power. But anyway, look, I don't want to digress. Is the Iran conflict or the Iran war worth it? Now that we see the potential endgame. A, yes. B, no. You can vote on our webpage, WRKO.com/Kuhner, WRKO.com/Kuhner, KUHN is in National ER. You can also vote via X. Oh, was I active last night on X? My handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, KUHNER. Paul in the great state of Texas, the Lone Star State. Thanks for holding, Paul, and welcome.
Hey, thank you, Jeff. Long-time listener, called you a few times. I have to kind of echo what your last caller, Jeff, said. The one thing that I heard a couple of times this morning, and I think maybe even you said it, was, it's the people, it's the people's fault because they haven't risen up yet. This all depends. The real victory all depends on the people, the Iranian people, rising up and toppling the regime, coming out. But nobody's talked about how they don't have any arms. They can't do it. 40,000 of them were murdered because there's thugs out there, the Iranian regime thugs with machine guns that shoot them when they go out in the street. And it's a real conundrum. I support the war because I truly believe that they were on the road to nuclear, having a nuclear weapon. And I just can't, I have a really good friend from Iran. He came here 10 years ago. He just got his PhD in engineering at the University of Texas. He's still got family there. And before the war started, he said, Trump drew a red line. He drew a line in the sand and told, that said he was going to help the Iranian people. And he's been saying this since the 1980s. He's been against the Iranian regime since the Ayatollahs took over. And, I love President Trump, and I don't know where I am on this right now, because I am very disappointed, that they're, that it looks like we're going to abandon the Iranians, who are basically locked inside their homes and apartments, because they don't have any weapons. They can't get out. They have not. Think about if it was us, if if we were trying to overthrow a tyrannical regime, which very well may come to pass if the Democrats get back in control. But we're armed, right? And we have the Second Amendment here.
You took the words out of my mouth, Paul. God bless the Second Amendment. I mean, this is a classic example of why I'm such a staunch supporter of the Second Amendment. You know, I understand it's handguns and AR-15s and rifles, but it doesn't matter. You can wage guerrilla war if need be. You can wage guerrilla war with that. You can pick them off. You can kill them. You can fight back. The Iranian people are completely unarmed. And Paul, look, reports are coming out over the last 3 weeks. These savages, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, by the way, and it looks like it's the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps that's running Iran now. So it's becoming, how do I say this? You know, even if the Ayatollah's son survived, we don't know if he's alive or not. It's the IRGC. They control the son no matter what. But so he's just a puppet. But it's now a military police state. That's what Iran has now become. And the hardliners in the IRGC have now consolidated power within the regime. And they're sending their thugs out onto the streets, not just in Tehran, but in other cities. And anybody they suspect to be a dissenter, a supporter of the United States, a critic of the regime, they're killing them. They're not even arresting them. They're just shooting them. So there's a bloodbath going on now. We just don't know how many thousands have been killed. So this thing is going, it's getting worse and worse. I think, frankly, that's another reason why Trump wants to end the war, because he's getting intelligence reports that are saying these savages are murdering their own people in the midst of this fighting. And my fear is the repercussions after the war. That's the other thing. That's why leaving the regime intact. Look, I was against the war. I want to be clear. But, you know the expression, if you go for the head of the king, you kill the king. You don't wound the king, because once the king is wounded, the more desperate the king is, the more violent the king becomes. So my fear is now that they're going to lash out at everybody who they suspect supported the bombing of Iran. And I think it could be a bloodbath. And what are we going to do at that point? Because we've signed essentially a treaty with them. That's, they're going to hold up their end. I mean, they're going to have to under pressure. So, okay, they give up their nukes, which is great. Their ballistic missiles will be limited. Great. They don't fund terrorists in the region. Great. So no enrichment. Great. That's all very good. But they hang on. They stay in power. And the sanctions are now lifted. And, the joint control of the Strait of Hormuz. So that's what I mean when I said, look, I think we can get a better deal. That's all I'm saying. I think we can get a better deal. But that's me. I don't know. Maybe Trump knows better. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm thinking you're giving the Iranians a lot. The sanctions alone, that's a lot. Lifting the sanctions? Gee, even if you want to keep them in power, okay. But you put the sanctions, they're going to get hundreds of billions of dollars in oil revenue over the next couple of years. They're going to sell all that freaking oil on the world market. It's a fact. I mean, it's not even an opinion. And all that money pouring in. Now, a lot of it's going to go to rebuilding Iran because we smashed so much of it. But still, they can rebuild and eventually they can rearm. And Trump is not going to be in power forever. I'm just saying we have to look down the road. We saw what Obama did in Iraq. He snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. Iraq was pacified. These the terrorists that were bombing us were defeated. And then Obama comes to power and he pulls all our troops out. And Iraq gets destroyed into 1,000 pieces. So what I'm saying is, yeah, Trump will keep him in a box. That I'm confident of. I'm not confident what comes after him. And we have to look at that. That's why I'd like the sanctions not to be lifted. Keep the boot on their throat. Paul, thank you very, very much for that call. I really appreciate it. Agree, disagree. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is from Marianne in Florida, and it sums up the feeling of many, many listeners of Kuhner Country. Not all, but many. Jeff, this deal is not about trusting or not trusting President Trump. It has to do with negotiating with terrorists. You can't negotiate with terrorists because they lie. We could put together the best deal in the entire world, and at some point they're going to go against it, even if they sign it 100 times. We have allies we have to worry about and take care of. And do you really think they're going to rebuild, meaning Iran, using their own money? I'm skeptical, because I believe we're going to end up having to rebuild Iran because we were the ones that bombed them. I just see that coming down the pike, especially if we lose in 2028 and the Democrat bleeding hearts get in, and that's more and more of our money going where it doesn't need to go, just like so much of our money went to Ukraine. I'm sorry, I just can't get behind this deal. President Trump now is awaiting Iran's response to the U.S. peace plan. If the Iranians accept it, the war with Iran will be over. And so my question to you, do you agree with the 15-point plan, Trump's deal? You think it's a good deal, a bad deal, number one? And number two, knowing now the potential end game, and again, the Iranians have not accepted it, so this thing could go on for more, God knows, another week or 2 or 3 or 4 weeks or however long. Do you think the Iran war, the Iran conflict, was it worth it? 617-266-6868. Mark in Lowell. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff.
Hi, Mark.
I do think the war is worth it, or conflict, or whatever you want to call it. The thing is to get rid of anything that dealt with nuclear, and there's not too much more talk going on about that stuff. So
well, Mark, I don't mean to cut you off, but I played the cut earlier, but just to reiterate, because it's important, Trump came out yesterday and saying it was a massive, for him, diplomatic victory, huge concession. He said the Iranians now have agreed to abandon their nuclear ambitions permanently, that they are going to give up all nuclear weapons, and that they promise to never have a nuke. And he says to him that's what broke the logjam. And that's when he said, okay, let's make a deal. So keep going, Mark. Go ahead.
Wants to hear. And these idiots over in Iran, the people that are in charge, they have a certain book for terrorists. Lie to infidels, and that's all you do. Look what happened to Hamas in Israel. That's going to happen here in Iran without the, American and Jewish hostages. But what I wanted to get across was that they needed to do this. Reparations are to the United States, not to them. We spent money to get rid of these nuclear weapons, which they were boasting about having and weren't willing to give up. Now they're willing to give them up, like you said. That's the logjam. And why are they willing to give them up? And why do they expect reparations for something that they started? And more importantly, we should take over that island, fill up our reserves of oil, and take that as partial payment automatically, and then figure out what's going to be the next payment until we're paid off, because each bomb doesn't cost a penny. Each individual out there waiting on the ocean boats are not doing it for free. All this stuff costs money. And from my perspective, why are we always the ones that give the money? And we're 30.
Oh, that's almost $40 trillion in debt. And no, you're right. And look, just to be accurate about it, the Strait of Hormuz, I mean, I understand it's the global price of oil that affects us. It affects our economy as well, no question. But the overwhelming bulk of the oil that goes through the Strait of Hormuz, it goes either to Asia or to Europe. We get very little of that actual oil. Now, China's reliant upon that oil, Japan, South Korea, the European Union. So the Europeans and the Asians have a powerful vested interest in making sure that the Strait of Hormuz is open, free, clear, and that oil gets through. So, I think Trump has a very strong case when he says to the Asians and to the Europeans, hey, you guys got to help me clear up the Strait of Hormuz, because ultimately that oil is heading to your ports and your destinations. Now, it does affect us. If oil goes up here as well. But we're lucky in the sense that we're no longer dependent upon oil from the Persian Gulf, from countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE and Kuwait and Bahrain. But look, what I don't like about this deal, again, I'm just being honest, is that it gives Iran something it never had before, which is joint control over the Strait of Hormuz. And that's a potential veto. Now, I understand we're going to be patrolling it as well, but that's the other thing. Do we really want to patrol the Strait of Hormuz? I mean, before it was an international waterway. All you see are just oil tankers going back and forth, or cargo ships full of oil going back and forth, back and forth. Now our Navy is going to be enmeshed in patrolling the Strait of Hormuz for God knows how many years. And so some are saying, well, we should charge a toll. Yeah, okay, but, you think the Saudis are going to be happy with that? You think the Kuwaitis are going to be happy with that? So what I'm saying is, look, if you've won the war, I'm just stating the obvious. This doesn't look like a peace plan that reflects a war that's been won. This reflects a peace plan where, militarily, we've, smashed them. We've beaten them up. But it looks to me more like President Trump is like saying, look, I just want to get out and, get an off-ramp because I got to win the midterms. Like, this thing, I don't want it to go on and on and on. So that begs the question, who told the president that this thing would be over in a week or two? Who told him? And I think I know who it is, but I want to get 100% confirmation before I say anything. Who told him, no, it's going to be a cakewalk. No. We're going to knock them out by 10 days. This thing is done. They'll be crying uncle. No. They won't dare to block the Strait of Hormuz. You mean to tell me that Pete Hegseth didn't plan for that? Okay, my friends, listen up. If you want the best way to hear the Kuhner Report every day, it is simple. The iHeartRadio app, it's free, it's easy, and it lets you take the show with you wherever you go. And here is the big announcement. We're launching something brand new. Kuhner's Talk Back, tit for tat. On the iHeart app, look in the upper right corner for the red microphone. Tap it, and boom, baby, you can leave a message for me, for Sandy, even for Mike. Tell us what's on your mind. Respond to something you heard on the show. Agree with us, disagree with us. Give us your tit for tat. No filters, no gatekeepers. Leave your messages anytime during the week, and every Monday in the final segment of the show, we'll play back the best talkbacks on the air. Your voice becomes part of the Kuhner Report. So download the iHeart app, hit that red microphone, and join Kuhner's Talk Back, tit for tat, where the listeners fire back. All right, this is breaking right now. In fact, it broke 7 minutes ago. Apparently now, Iran's military spokesman, and remember now, the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, essentially now are running the regime. Okay, whether the son is alive or not, wounded, the figurehead, a puppet, it's the IRGC that's pulling all the strings. Oh, they're using holographs of the Ayatollah. Yeah, who knows if he's alive. So they're using holographs of him. So he may even be dead. But anyway, the fact is let's just deal with facts. The IRGC is the power. They're running the regime now. They're in full, complete, and utter control. Their spokesman has now come out and said that the United States is, quote, negotiating with itself to get out of a strategic, their words, not mine, to get out of a strategic defeat. Now, that doesn't mean they've said no, but that sounds to me as close to a no as you can get. So now again, I'm not saying they've rejected the 15-point plan that Trump has sent them, but if someone, if their response is you're negotiating with yourself to get out of a strategic defeat, that means the IRGC, the regime, the theocracy, they believe, if you can believe it, they're winning the war. Or they think they're holding all the cards and that Trump is desperate for a deal. Now, they may find out that Trump was trying to be nice because, as I said in the opening monologue, the 82nd Airborne is now being deployed. They're on their way. The Marine Expeditionary Unit is going to arrive this Friday when the deadline ends that Trump gave them an extension on. If they don't come up with a deal, a diplomatic deal, he will then, he says, obliterate Iran's energy power plants and their entire electric grid. In other words, the lights will go out all across Iran. And he's maybe going to take Karg Island or other strategic islands, or maybe even put them in these coastal areas and just clear out the Strait of Hormuz on our own. So that means that would be a real strategic blow to the regime. So, again, if I were them, I'd take this deal, but, I'm not a crazy Ayatollah. I don't know what to tell you. 617-266-6868. But from what's coming out of Tehran, I don't think they're taking this 15-point plan. We shall see, but it doesn't sound good. Let's put it that way. Shelley in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Shelley, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi,
and
Shelley.
Thanks again for what you do for our country. So what I'm going to say basically has been said by previous callers, but I'm going to say it perhaps a little more directly, concisely, bluntly. I'm afraid that this 15-item proposal will end up being just another example of our administration's kicking the can down the road because, number one, Democratic administrations will renege on all of these points because today's Democrats seem unable to recognize evil when they see it. For example, on the Fox news feed today, there's New Jersey Governor Mikey Sherrill, all dressed up in hijab, meeting with this imam that the United States government has been trying to deport for a while, just sucking up to this imam during a war, a fight against this theocratic evil. Number two, the mullahs, by killing 40,000 of their dissenters, their freedom fighters, demonstrate that they have not changed their Nazi-like mentality whatsoever. The mullahs are hell-bent on bringing back their 12th Mahdi to rule over everyone. They won't divert from this path. They, like Hamas, will not be beguiled by the thought of building five-star resorts on the Mediterranean or a rich Iran trading with the world. We will be letting this Nazi-like theocracy get away with what the UN should be all over. Genocide in Iran committed by its government, the murder of the 40,000 Iranian fighters or freedom fighters. 3, will our adversaries over the next 5 or 10 years facilitate the transfer of nuclear weaponry and long-range missiles to this government? And as the mullahs trade under this proposal, they'll have the money to purchase such things. And lastly, I wish so much that I could hear what the Israelis are thinking about this 15-point plan because it's their country most immediately in Iran's crosshairs. Their very survival as a society, as a country is at stake if this goes wrong. So anyway, Jeff, that's what I had to say.
Well, Shelley, look, again, a very thoughtful call. Every time you call, it's very thoughtful, always. And cogent, coherent, insightful. I can tell you this, the Israelis are not happy. They're not happy. And the reason why they're not happy is they want regime change. Netanyahu's been very clear about that. His cabinet's been very clear about that. The Israeli military has been very clear about that. They want the mullahs gone. They want this regime overthrown and toppled. And so they're not happy with this. Now, I'm not saying they're dead set against it, because for them, a big win, and it is a very big win, is this really takes Iran's nuclear program off the table. This is not a vague, look, to be fair to Trump, this is not, hey, we want a vague promise. No. No nuclear weapons. No nuclear enrichment whatsoever. We're going to, you're going to send us all the enrichment that you have. We're going to all be inspected by us. You're going to send it out of Iran. Now, we'll give you a civilian nuclear program because you say it's important to you, but we're going to control the enrichment, and then we give you the enriched uranium to put into a civilian nuclear plant, power plant. So, what it does is, as I said, the best word that comes to mind is it defangs the regime. It limits their ballistic missiles. They can't hit Israel anymore. It's only for defensive, limited purposes. So, in many ways, Iran's military has been effectively neutered. Its nuclear threat has been utterly now taken off the table. Their nuclear ambitions are over, at least for now. So I think Trump can, he can definitely go back and say we've accomplished key military objectives. There's no question. But look, the Israelis know the Iranian leadership. We all know the Iranian leadership. And, the term snake really comes from them. That's, it's a snake. And a snake, by its very nature, wants to sting you. And they're saying, okay, yeah, we're fine. We're good. We're good for a couple of years. Easy. Mark in Milton. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure, Mark.
Unlike you, I was maybe not as against the war. I can see all of the possibilities for it, but I could also see all the possibilities against it. But, once the decision was made, to me, this so-called deal is straight out of the Neville Chamberlain book of war resolution. And if a deal is made that allows these radical, they don't care if they live or die, and obviously they want everybody else to die. If a deal is made that allows any one of these people to have any decision-making ability in that country, then October 7th is just going to occur over and over and over again. And this looks like a bigger cut and run than George Bush did, stopping 20 miles, away from Saddam. And how many Americans died in roadside bombs, etc. after that? How's Afghanistan doing? What a wonderful place for women, for all you liberals. I don't know if any liberals are listening to the show, but I wonder how. Oh,
they listen. Believe me, Mark. Trust me, they listen. I have the numbers on the shows, the ratings of the show, the demographics of people who listen. Liberals don't want to admit they listen, but trust me, a lot of them listen. But anyway, keep going, Mark. You're on a roll.
So we went into the China shop, and I don't, we just have no way to pull back without looking like Vietnam, Korea. I mean, I guess we won in Panama, but there hasn't. This country needs the victory. It stated a purpose. It was, how great would the world have been if Hitler was taken out before World War II? And then just think of the consequences if they tried to take Hitler out before World War II and failed. I think they would have upped their game a lot faster. And, man, how do you negotiate with these people who are going to lie to your face? None of this makes any sense. So I'm a triple Trumper. Any form of not living up to what the stated purpose of this was is a failure. And that's the end of it.
Mark, let me ask you, what is it that bothers you more? I know both bother you, but which one bothers you more? That if they accept the 15-point plan, that the regime remains intact, it survives, in other words, they live to fight another day, or that the sanctions get completely lifted, and that they're able to rejoin the international community, trade with the entire world, sell all of their oil on the international market. And, Iran has a ton of oil. I mean, there's no question about it. It's got a ton of oil. And that essentially they would be flush in oil revenue, petrodollars, to rebuild their country and eventually rearm. What troubles you more? The fact that it leaves the regime in power, or that the sanctions are lifted? So now economically, the mullahs will have access to more money than ever. Ever. Because remember, since 1979, there's been sanctions. They've been a sanctioned country for the last 47 years. This is the big carrot that Trump's putting on the table for them to end the war. That's why, personally, I think they're insane if they don't take this deal. But anyway, that's their business. And the thing is, for 47 years, you've been under sanctions. Now there'll be no sanctions. So I'm just curious, what bothers you more? That the regime survives, or that the sanctions are lifted?
Is one and the same, because one follows the other. And we already know what they're going to do with the money. Maybe they don't rebuild a nuclear program, but we know they will. There's mountainous regions that they can do it in, and they know better now that they have to do it even more in secret. There will be so many October 7th that occur. They're going to be able to fund every radical terrorist group, I got to say it, radical Muslim terrorist group around this world. And with the sanctions lifted, we as Americans are not going to get any relief out of oil revenues, because I think we should get paid back for this, and certainly not rebuild. I wouldn't mind American companies going in there into Iran and having an economic presence, which in and of itself helps rebuild, but certainly no money coming directly out of the American coffers. But to me, that question, if this 15-point plan is accepted, it's one and the same. The mullahs stay in power, and they get sanctions lifted. So they're equally horrible.
Mark, look, I think, again, that's why I my prediction, I could be wrong. I don't claim to have a crystal ball. I think those whack jobs are going to turn the deal down. At least that's the rhetoric I'm hearing from Tehran, from everything I'm reading in the last half an hour. So they think they have us on the run. I'm like, are you serious?
Well, they do.
They think they've won the war. I know what you're saying. There's pressure on us diplomatically to end it, Trump politically to end it. I get it. But, honestly, Mark, if you listen to them, you would think that they bombed 9,000 targets, that they wiped out our Navy, they wiped out our Air Force, they took out our air defenses. And I'm like, guys, your army, your military is being ground to dust. But anyway, Mark, we'll see. Next 48 hours, pivotal. Mark, as always, thank you so much for that call. Annie on the South Shore, thanks for holding, Annie, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear that wonderful voice of yours. Mark stole my thunder. I agree with everything Mark said, except here's my view on it, Mark. Jeff, don't stop. Finish the job. And the other thing is, you're making deals with Iran. We don't know who's in charge. How do you make deals with somebody you don't know is really in charge?
Well, Annie, to be fair to Trump, and I hear what you're saying, in other words, topple the regime, go all in and finish it. But they're negotiating now with the leader. I can give you his name. He's an obscure guy, but he was the former commander of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, former mayor, a police chief. He's now basically the House Speaker. It would be sort of like Mike Johnson. He's the head of the Iranian parliament. And he's known as a bit of a political opportunist. And apparently now he's negotiating on behalf of the regime. That's who Trump's people are negotiating with through Pakistan, Turkey, and Egypt. But that's the guy who's going back and forth with J.D. Vance, with Marco Rubio, with Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner. In fact, that's who Witkoff and Kushner are directly through an intermediary, but that's who they're dealing with. So, and Trump thinks he's sort of like Iran's Delcy Rodriguez, the number 2 under Maduro, who is a bit more pragmatic and flexible. So Trump says he's made some concessions on oil and gas in the Strait of Hormuz. He called it a big gift. This is what he said yesterday, that he's letting some of these ships, these oil containers go through to help ease the price of oil around the world. And Trump said to him, I like that. That's a very good first step. And then apparently this Iranian parliamentary leader, the leader of Iran's parliament, also said, okay, we're also going to give up our nuclear weapons. So he's made some major concessions that Trump feels I have enough here to put together a final deal that I can declare victory and the American people will be happy with. But what I hear from you, Annie, is you don't want this deal. You want this war to be prosecuted to the end and the mullahs overthrown, correct?
100% correct. Because you know what? Everybody's talking about this war and, the midterms and what have you. We don't decide a war on midterms. I mean, what kind of a country are we? We went in to help the people of Iran. How is that going to change their lives? That's not going to change their lives. We already lost 13 military personnel. And you know what? If this war is going to be fought, then bring the might of the United States in and for once and for all, get it done.
Annie, thank you very, very much for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask all of you. It is, without question now, the issue of the day, the issue of the hour. President Trump now says that there is a potential peace plan. He has now offered a deal to the Ayatollahs, or whatever, the regime, and that it includes the following. They have to give up their nuclear capabilities completely, no nuclear weapons, no enrichment, no ability to enrich uranium whatsoever, to limit their ballistic missile program to basically short-range missiles, self-defense purposes. They will not be able to target Israel or their neighbors, forget Europe. And they must stop all funding of terrorist proxies in exchange for this. So basically the military, the military neutering of Iran. In exchange for that, Trump says the regime will remain intact. They will survive. All sanctions will be lifted. They will be allowed to rejoin the international community. And there will be joint control over the Strait of Hormuz between the United States and Iran. Like the deal? Don't like the deal? Is it the best that we can get now? Is Trump trying to salvage the best out of this situation? Would you accept the deal? Would you advise the president to do the deal or to reject it or not do the deal? 617-266-6868. Okay, we finally made contact with her. Joining me now, Dr. Grace, putting liberals in their place. Grace Voto. Full disclosure, my wonderful wife, and man, did I marry up. Grace, straight out of the gate, deal, no deal.
Jeff, first of all, I want to congratulate you on your incredible coverage ever since this war has begun. You've shown every step of the way that you're such a class act, not only giving all of the information, but allowing everybody with opposing points of view to speak. So honestly, it's one of your finest hours. Now, regarding this, I've been saying the whole time I've been listening to you go, can we get door 3 here? Can I get door 3? Deal or no deal? How about door 3? This is what I really want to say this morning, Jeff. So what I want now is I want Pete Hegseth, Lindsey Graham, Marco Rubio, and Donald Trump to suit up and go right now and clear the Strait of Hormuz for us. Because you know what? It's very, very easy to send other people to die. But if you're going to make a decision like this, contrary to everything that our intelligence community told them, contrary to what many people in MAGA told them, you're going to make a completely idiotic decision, now you own this problem big time. And we've already lost 13 American service members. They were told by the intelligence community 2 things. The people of Iran are not strong enough to overtake the mullahs. So everybody that's saying that it's the Iranian people's fault don't understand that all our intelligence agencies already told the president and anybody that could listen that it wasn't going to happen. And they also told them that the Strait of Hormuz were going to be blocked. And now this administration, who actually is being led by an imbecile at the Department of Defense, Pete Hegseth, who I said from the start is completely incapable of running the Department of Defense. They made no plans for the 2 most basic contingencies, that the Iranian people were not going to overtake the mullahs, that they're not strong enough now, and that the Strait of Hormuz was going to be blocked. So now they caused the largest oil shortage in world history. This is worse than anything that ever happened in the 1970s. They caused it. And 13 American service members are dead. Almost 290 American service members are wounded. And you know what they want to do now? They are amassing a massive contingencies of our service members to go and clean up their diarrhea. Because that's what this is right now. This is diarrhea that they created. And let's not make any mistake about it.
Grace, I understand you're very passionate about this. Let me ask you, though, what do you say to the argument, these are the mullahs, this is the Islamic Republic of Iran, since 1979, their very inception, they have been at war with the United States, at war with Israel, at war with their neighbors, at war with the West, and that they have been building up a clandestine nuclear weapons program for decades. And that no responsible president, when given the possibility to take out the mullahs and finally obliterate their program, shouldn't take it. Trump saw the opportunity, he and Benjamin Netanyahu, and they acted. And whether you agree or disagree with the war, their nuclear program is gone. It's gone. They cannot, in any nuclear way, threaten to wipe Israel off the map, as they've done for many years. They can't put a ballistic missile with a nuke that could hit Europe. In other words, yes, the regime may survive. You're right. And Pete Hegseth has a lot to answer for. I agree with you. The planning of the war on his part was a disaster. But that in the end, militarily, Trump achieved his goals. The mullahs will not be able to have any nukes, and they will not have the ballistic missiles to threaten their neighbors. What say you?
Jeff, listen to me. In the election, he does not have a mandate to do this. First of all, he doesn't have a mandate to take the country to war. He didn't have a mandate to go and do this at all. And he has yet to show us, I mean, unless you have Ratcliffe and Tulsi Gabbard who lied to the public for 2 days under oath, the intelligence community had already told him that the program was obliterated. So he doesn't have an electoral mandate, which means that essentially he's been violating international law and American law. And now he has been using the word war. So he has taken us to war over something that is not proven. Look, he's got a credibility problem right now because his own intelligence community is contradicting what he's saying. And there's another factor to consider right now, Jeff. If you are Vladimir Putin, You're smiling from ear to ear at this situation. And what am I going to do if I'm Vladimir Putin? I'm telling the Iranians, let me coach you on how to play the Americans now. You see Jared and Witkoff coming? I can run circles around Jared and Witkoff. Let me teach you how. And that's what's going on now. The Russians are sharing intelligence with the Iranians. The Russians are gaining billions of dollars because now we had to lift the oil sanctions. And the Russians are going to teach the Iranians how to run circles around the complete incompetence they're negotiating for the Trump administration. Vladimir Putin has been running circles around the American negotiators since Trump got into office. And it's these same two morons that we're sending now to negotiate with Iran, and Vladimir Putin is coaching them. And all they have to do is, listen, pretend to negotiate and string it along as long as possible. Because guess what? This president went to war without the support of his own people. And that's what's squeezing Trump. If he had gone to war with the support of the people, he would have been in a position of strength. But everybody around the world knows that he's got a clock ticking because the people don't support the war. So everybody around the world knows, string it along, war of attrition. The guy is now in a box that he put himself in.
Grace, we've got less than 2 minutes. Has Trump lost the midterms, in your view, over this war? Has this war cost him and the Republicans the midterms? You said the war is unpopular. Polls show it's maybe 50-50, but you're right. There is strong opposition to the war. That is true. And gas prices are up. Energy is up. Inflation is coming back. I know his inner circle is very worried about the political fallout with that. Has this now cost Trump the midterms?
Jeff, it's so damaging, honestly, and that's why I respect what you're doing, because you're doing everything you can to try to keep everybody together. But look, the anti-war people are extremely upset. And they're upset precisely because many of us are triple Trumpers, right? We're triple Trumpers. We voted for him 3 times, and we voted for the focus to be on America. And so we're extremely upset. And it's going to take people like you to get everybody who's upset to go to the polls and help win the midterms. Because he's got big problems now. Lost the independence, upset a key faction of his base, and he seems to be in a quagmire. And now almost anything that he does is not going to be good. And he unfortunately owns it. And one of the reasons he owns it is that he has somebody completely incompetent at the Department of Defense who gave him very bad advice, and he's surrounded by neocon hawks that are telling him, go, go, go. Lindsey Graham just said, go ahead, send the Marines. You know what? So we did it with Iwo Jima. Let's do it again. Sure, we lost 7,000 of our service members in Iwo Jima. You know, look at the beautiful faces of the men and women that we lost. 13 American service members are already gone forever. And for what? For shoddy planning and for a war that the American people never voted for. This is completely unacceptable.
Tell me how you really feel.
I'm sorry, Jeff. I'm not as classy as you. I'm just not as classy.
Well, I can see you're very passionate and you're very hot under the collar.
I'm married up. You're married down.
All right, Grace, thank you so much as always, and we'll talk to you next week, same time, same place. All right, Grace says this is now turning into a debacle, and that this is going to cost Trump the midterms. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, President Trump sends Iran a 15-point plan to end the war. Agree, disagree? Do you support the plan, or do you believe the plan is bad for the country and bad for the region? 617-266-6868. Patrick in Connecticut. Thanks for holding, Patrick, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Hey, I want to say that Grace did a great job of analysis. She is absolutely right. Pete Hegseth is an imbecile. I told you way back when that Ron DeSantis was the right choice for the Secretary of Defense now war, and this just proves my point. Now,
sorry, Patrick, if you don't mind me asking, do you work for the CIA or the NSA by any chance? Are you listening in on my dinner conversations with Grace? Because that's all she's been telling me now for the last 3 freaking weeks. That DeSantis would have been perfect for Secretary of Defense. That Trump should have gone with DeSantis and not Hegseth. And we wouldn't be in the mess that we're in right now. But anyway, I'm like, whoa, Patrick. I'm like, hey, are you deep state by any chance? All right. Anyway, keep going, Patrick. Boy, you really sound like Grace. But anyway, keep going.
Anyway, so when you look at the geopolitical chessboard now, what you have is two major powers trying to politically and militarily encircle each other. So when Trump left office, we had China surrounded. We had the Bagram air base in Afghanistan. Biden came in, and the Chinese basically broke our encirclement and started to encircle us by doing things in Venezuela, taking control of the Panama Canal, and taking control, of Cuba, et cetera, et cetera. Trump came back and then broke their encirclement of us. When what he did in Venezuela, kicking the Chinese out of Panama, now what he's doing in Cuba, even the taking control of Greenland, because if the Chinese and the Russians had taken control of that, they would have been able to deny our Navy access to the Arctic Circle shipping circles. So the next step in the process on the chessboard was taking out the Iranians, so that if the Chinese invaded Taiwan, we would be able to essentially cut them off from oil at the source. Not just at the Straits of Malacca, not just at the not just in the Arctic Circle, but at the source. So I'm saying I'm against this deal, because if you are now looking at the chessboard, and what you are now looking at is two things. One, unless in the Middle East, if you control the oil and the proceeds of the oil, you control everything. If you don't control the oil and the proceeds, you control nothing. And the other thing I'm looking at now is I'm looking at Donald Trump eye to eye, and I'm seeing a chess player that's afraid to make the move if casualties are involved. If I was the Philippines, I would be nervous now, because what's going to happen if the Chinese take Taiwan, or is the United States going to be a reliable ally and protect us? Or the Japanese, if I was the Japanese, I would be nervous and wondering who I should side with. That's the way I see the political board right now. What do you think?
Oh, very interesting. And, think about it. Now, if you lift the sanctions, because that's, part of the 15-point plan, China now is going to get more oil than ever before. I mean, to your point about Iran being one of their key suppliers. So, the Iranians can really now crank up production because, much of their oil has been sanctioned, not anymore. So in some ways, ironically, it may leave China even in a stronger position. Am I wrong, Patrick?
Right, because they're taking the measure of our political class and our population. So in World War II, our population was limited to 4 gallons of gas per week at any cost. Now we have a population that is, whining about, and I would say that I would take a stock of a lot of these peaceniks in the MAGA movement that are real wimps, and say the MAGA movement does not have a wartime footing. It does not have the capacity to fight a war. So you have now two pacifist wings of the American politique. You have the MAGA politique, the J.D. Vances, et cetera, and you also have the Democrats, and the Chinese Party is basically a client of the Democratic Party. So they are now coming out of this stronger than they went in.
Interesting.
By going to war and not winning it, and not controlling what you went into control, which is
the oil,
which is the oil. And
no, that's excellent. In other words, Patrick, without, as you put it, if you don't deliver the knockout blow and take out the regime and control the oil, you've actually now inadvertently you've strengthened China, and that's putting us ultimately in a much weaker position. Fascinating. I didn't even look at it from that point of view. Patrick, thank you very much for that call. Best audience in the business. Okay. Again, I'm going to give you the absolute latest. There's a lot of breaking news right now. Again, I just want you to know I'm a prisoner of the media. These are breaking stories. They're reporting stuff from Iran. So it seems to me like it's accurate, but I can't give you 100% guarantee. But this is what the Wall Street Journal is now reporting. Iran now is dismissing Trump's plan for peace. They're calling it a wish list. This is exactly what's being reported. Iran's Information Council, which apparently is part of the government's communication apparatus, they have now said that the Trump plan, the 15-point plan to end the war, amounted to a wish list of objectives that has not been achieved militarily. Quote, this is their official statement, quote, Trump's statements are false and should not be taken seriously. And this is what the Iranian state media is now, at least that's what they're broadcasting publicly. Now, maybe they're saying something different in private. We don't know. But this is now what they're saying in public. Now, secondly, I have to say they're being incredibly disrespectful. I mean, the way they're talking about Trump, the way they're talking about our country, it's extremely disrespectful. Now, on top of this, the Iranian media, it appears that this may be accurate. They are now reporting that Tehran has launched multiple cruise missiles at the USS Abraham Lincoln. This is what the New York Post is now reporting. And that the USS Abraham Lincoln, the aircraft carrier, it's one of our biggest aircraft carriers, is based in the Arabian Sea. They have been vital to this entire operation and in support of Operation Epic Fury. Now, apparently, nothing was hit. Luckily, our aircraft carrier was not hit, but they are launching multiple cruise missiles in the direction of the USS Abraham Lincoln. They're not reporting that they hit it. Apparently, some of them have been shot down. Others have missed. But what this shows is that Tehran still has a lot of fight left in it. On top of that, the military in Iran has now come out and said to Trump that Tehran, quote unquote, will never come to terms with the United States and with Trump. And in particular, they've now sent out a video on state media. Quote, this is from their spokesman, the official military spokesman. Quote, someone like us will never come to terms with someone like you. Not now, not ever. So, again, I don't know what they're saying in private, but this is what they're saying in public. They further said, the strategic power you used to talk about has turned into a strategic failure. The one claiming to be a global superpower would have already gotten out of this mess if it could. Don't dress up your defeat as an agreement. Your era of empty promises has come to an end. So, from what I'm gathering, again, these are public statements. They like to be bellicose. They like to sound tough. Remember, this is the Middle East. This is the Muslim world. Saving face is extremely important. So many times they'll say something in public and do something the very opposite in private. However, going by these statements, going by these actions, it appears that the mullahs are convinced that they hold the cards, that they have us on the run. Not that they're winning the war. Obviously, they're not. We're destroying them militarily. They're taking a bloody good hiding, as the British would put it. They're taking a vicious beating and a pounding. But that they believe now that Trump's offer of a peace plan through Witkoff and Jared Kushner is actually a sign of weakness. That Trump is looking for an off-ramp. And that he's looking for an off-ramp because politically he feels that it's hurting him. And economically, the price of oil and gas, energy, inflation is going to hurt him down the road with the midterms. And so they believe that they can outlast Trump, wait out Trump. And if it means sending in the Marines, send in the Marines. If it means us taking Karg Island, they're willing to even take that. If it means 2, 3, 4 more weeks of massive bombing, they're willing to endure that because they believe in the end they can outlast Trump. And by outlasting Trump, they can claim a victory. So I guess the way they're looking at it is survival equals victory. So my question now to you, this is essentially a diplomatic slap in the face. Trump offered an olive branch. Trump offered an end to the war. And the Iranians are saying, we're not interested in peace. This is now a fight to the death. What should Trump do now? Is it time to declare victory and come home? Or should he send in ground forces, take over these strategic islands, Karg Island being the big one, and try to deliver a knockout blow and break the back of this regime? 617-266-6868. Lisa in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Lisa, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff.
Hi, Lisa.
Well, that's a little unfair because I had things to say, and now you say all this. I was going to start the phone call with I completely disagreed with Grace and Patrick. And I still disagree. I mean, I think war always takes twists and turns, and I don't think that they went in there without plan A through M. So I know that they had contingencies for whatever could happen. I think the one thing that might have threw them off their game a bit is NATO, the EU, and you know, squeamish people. So in my opinion, he did this knowing that the gas prices were going to go up and oil was going to be an issue and the midterms were coming. So because he did it anyway, makes me believe that he needed to do it. And again, I'm a 3-time Trump voter, and I trust him. I voted for him 3 times because I trust him. And as far as Pete goes, I mean, Pete's brilliant. I mean, he's Ivy League educated. He's done 1 million tours. He was active duty. Pete is a solid guy. Trump is not, and he has the general and he has Raising Cane, and, you know, there's always going to be a difference of opinion when you bring in people that are moderates, like, say, Tulsi or even Joe Kent or whatever. So, and that's what Trump likes. Don't forget, we used to be Democrats. So we like both sides, and he likes to base his information. But at the end of the day, his goal was never regime change. It was getting rid of the nukes. He wanted to set the stage for the Iranian people to step up and take over their own government. He didn't want to change the regime. That was Israel. He said that 10 times. His goal was the nukes. And he's taken out their capabilities for now. And yeah, they're tough. There's 100 million. Look at 2.5 weeks ago, he could have taken the water towers. He could have taken the island. He could have blew up their grid. He could have did 1 million different things. He doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to hurt the Iranian people. He was giving everybody in that region the opportunity to step up and take over their own area and finally get rid of Iran, who everybody's been complaining about for the last 100 years, us 50 years. They have a target on our back every single day. So I don't know what people expect. I mean, war takes twists and turns. This guy is giving up everything, his ratings and and the oil prices and affordability and the midterms to try to set this world on a path knowing he's the only one that has the balls to do it. So I don't know what people expect of this guy. We vote him in to save the world, and we vote him in because we trust him, and then everybody questions everything he does on every single turn. At the end of the day, the Iranian people in the Middle East have to take command. Well, we did the work for them. We set the stage for them. We get 4% of our oil from there. China is going to have to figure things out along with the Middle East. We're taking care of our region over here. The guy's only one man.
Oh, look, there's no question. I mean, he's only one man. 617-266-6868. Frank in Medford. Thanks for holding, Frank, and welcome.
To go up against your wife, you got to be kidding me. I think you're going to be landing up in the moon base, pal, because I'm about to throw her under the bus, pal. And I don't have a camera in front of me, and you haven't heard my voice because I'm working around the clock.
Oh, Frank, hold on. You sound like a robot. Hold on. Something happened with the connection. You went from sounding like a human being to like R2-D2 or C-3PO in Star Wars. All right, let's see if we can reconnect with Frank. Do we have Frank back? Frank?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, you sound like a person again. All right, keep going, Frank.
All right, so I don't have a camera, so I'm going to be calm, cool, and collective. All right, what's going on in this here? We're getting confused here. What is Trump's purpose? He's going in all guns. Why? If you look back in his history, he's been studying Adolf Hitler and what's going on in this world. And we're all in this country, how come we can't get things done? Well, let's see. Didn't Hitler slaughter his people? Could they uprise? No. What happened when we walked away? They gained power. And when they gained power, we get a war. Underneath the previous presidents, what do we make? We're making money. What is the difference between this president and old presidents? Old presidents make money. So what does that sound to me? Let's see. They stole all our money. They made money for profit. Sounds like the United States of America doesn't realize we're a third world country. Trump knows that. He wants us to wake up. He wants us to cheer us. So what does he do? What has he been saying? I have the best weaponry in the world, over and over to see us if we're awake. Are we awake? No. What did he do when he first got in? I do believe he made Clinton steal false information on weaponry that were inferior. While he was in office, I do believe, didn't he go to Iraq? Yes, he did. I said that about 6 years ago.
I'm sorry, Frank, you're losing me. You're everywhere. Who went to Iraq 6 years ago?
Not 6 years. When the president got in, he went to Iraq. I apologize. Mr. Trump, in secrecy. And what did he do, from what we understood, because we had this conversation?
Oh, hold on. When did he go to Iraq? In 2025?
Earlier than that, when he was first coming into office.
You mean 2016?
2014. Oh, early. Yes, sir. Thank you. I'm sorry if I'm over the map. I had to get away from the camera. All right. So from what I understand, he undid what Obama was doing. And what was that? He had a statement to kill Americans. Do we remember that? Of course not, because we got in so many other subjects. He undid that. While he was there, from what I understand, he looked at the troops. All past presidents started wars.
I'm sorry, he looked at the troops where? In Iraq?
Military base. I apologize.
Frank, sorry, I don't understand what you're saying. I don't mean to be rude, but really you're all over the place. I don't understand what you're trying to say. But anyway, thank you for the call, Frank. Maria in Ludlow. 3 minutes, and I don't understand a sentence this guy's saying. Maria in Ludlow. Thanks for holding, Maria, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Maria?
Tired.
Oh, I know. You've had another long shift at the hospital. I hear you. Maria, don't mean to rush you. We've only got a couple minutes. So go, please.
I hope, Mr. Trump, if you're listening to me, your people are listening to me, finish this up. We started this up. Let's finish this up. Let's not leave this regime run loose, because it's going to go back to what it was. It might not be the same person, but they probably will bring somebody else in, and it's going to terrorize the Iranian people. I know the Iranian people need to step up and take over, but right now, 13 lives have been lost. They continue to kill people. We need to go in there and finish up and walk away with victory. There is no negotiation. I'm 1,000% against this negotiation. We do not negotiate with terrorists. It's always been a factor in the Americans never to negotiate with any sort of terrorism. So, Mr. Trump, don't do any deals. Peter Axteth, whatever you say his name, you need to take a step back, regroup, and do what you need to do. And his son-in-law, Kushner, whatever, he's not part of the administration. It's like me telling you, Jeff, go put an IV on the patient and draw blood. You have no idea what you're doing. I'm sure he has all this background, but he's not part of the administration. He shouldn't be doing any deals or going to voice his opinion in any way, shape, or form. So I voted for Mr. Trump all this time. I will continue to back him up. He's not a stupid man, but no deal should be made. Go in there, clean house, and finish this up. Make it count, and that's it. And come home and do what you need to do.
Well, Maria, I think the mullahs, Trump tried the diplomatic approach now. I think he can legitimately go to the American people and said, look, I gave them an off-ramp. This is a generous deal. I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, you get to survive, sanctions are lifted, and we both control the Strait of Hormuz. That's not a bad deal if you're the mullahs. Now, they're slapping him in the face. So, Trump can now say, okay, I tried it the easy way. Now we're going to do it the hard way.